Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali, and having learnt a few things through human interactions and to a degree through self-reflection, which includes myself and others and thereby our interactions, and having pursued my master's in business administration and clinical psychology, I today wish to talk about observing our patterns, reflecting on our patterns, and probably trying to understand them to a degree. So in order to reflect on that, in order to understand that, I'd like to take my personal example. So just a few days back, I had experienced diarrhea. So what exactly is diarrhea? On a physical level, the symptoms of it looks something like this. And the emotional or the psychological reasons for diarrhea is an underlying state of distress and anxiety. Now, taking it a little forward, if you look at it very objectively, there's a sense of disconnect between the gut, the heart, and the brain. They are not in tune with each other, and quite naturally, that causes distress. The other aspect of that is me not having listened to my gut instincts or to my gut feelings at that point in time, denying and avoiding my own gut instincts, my own gut feelings. And like Dr. Gabor says, think about any species, the way we evolved, the way any species evolves. What happens to them if they are not in touch with their gut feeling, with their gut instincts? They quite literally do not survive for very long, given our evolutionary history. The second point that he also highlights is reflect on all of the times when you did not listen to your gut feelings, your gut instincts, and you regretted not listening to your gut instinct and your gut feelings. And the third aspect that he points us towards is look back at your history, look back at your lifetime. When you learnt first not to listen to your gut instincts, to your gut feelings, not to pay attention to them, but rather run away from them, avoid them. Because that was probably and very likely the time when you started listening more to the world and started listening lesser to yourself, started paying little attention towards yourself and thereby your senses as well. Gut instinct is a very sensory thing, which in my understanding all mammals can relate to, including humans. So coming back to what I was trying to address, with regards to observing and reflecting on and thereby understanding our own patterns, the times when we've not paid attention and heed to our senses and thereby quite naturally behaved in a nonsensical manner. So with regards to being disconnected from my own gut feelings, from not having a harmonious connection between my gut, my heart and my brain, resulted in me experiencing diarrhea, thankfully without pains and cramps. But still, nonetheless, my body, my senses were trying to tell me some things. For as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk would say, our body is the first and the last frontier. It is forever keeping a tab and a score of everything that happens consciously, subconsciously and unconsciously or non-consciously. Our bodies are forever keeping a tab of things that we deliberately pay attention to and things that we do not pay attention to, of things that we engage in and of things that we avoid, of things that we are running towards and of things that we are running away from. And if we can call our body a machine, it's a beautifully designed machine that doesn't lie. For holding any kind of lies causes it more distress. And in a way, most lie detector tests would tell us that our bodies keep a score of everything and that they do not lie. If we are sensible enough to pay attention to our senses, if we are sensible enough to be connected with our senses. So now coming to the aspect as to why I felt distressed was because that in order to maintain the harmony in my interpersonal relationships, the superficial harmony in my interpersonal relationships, and not to lose the attachment towards those relationships, the fear of losing the attachments to those relationships, the emotional attachments, the bindings to those relationships, I said and acted in ways which I knew I would not have done, which I knew I should not have done. I was just wanting to be nice. I was just playing nice. And to a degree, I did not put up boundaries. I did not negotiate my boundaries when I could have done it, when it should have also been done. And when I did not communicate and negotiate on my boundaries, to a degree, I was lying to myself and also being dishonorable towards myself as well. Quite naturally, there was a conflict internally. Quite naturally, there was a disharmony within me. And like it said, that when we are trying to avoid any external conflict or even a perception of conflict externally, when we are not communicating effectively and when we are not communicating our boundaries, our negotiables and our non-negotiables, quite likely during those times, we start a war within. And a similar thing happened with me. My physical senses, my gut told me how disconnected I was from my gut feelings at that point in time. And in a way, since it wasn't painful, that I wasn't crippling with pain, it gave me some time to reflect, to journal, and to be able to process both my physical and my emotional distress, which then also tells me that our emotional and our physical health, our psychological and our physical health are interconnected. They are one operating system. And of course, since that distress was also in keeping with certain interactions, which of course involves other people, it also gives us a place to reflect that every interaction that we have becomes a part of our emotional and our physical body. To a degree, it also provides us the scope to reflect and observe how honest and how true we are being to ourselves and to others in our interpersonal interactions. And if we are being true and honest to ourselves and with others during those or in those interpersonal interactions, how does it show up in our bodies? How does it show up in our emotional and our physical bodies? And if we are not being true and if we are not being honest, even if they are with white lies, non-malicious lies, how is it showing up in our emotional and our physical bodies? Also, when we talk of patterns, we cannot ignore, but take into account our history, our personal and our interpersonal history, because it is only through the observation of that history that we can observe our own patterns. It is only through the reflection and the observation of that we can understand if we need or if we should continue with those habits and patterns, or should we overcome them and even break them if necessary. Have they been helpful to us and have they not been helpful to us? In what ways, to what degrees have they been helpful to us? Our own patterns and our habits. And to what degree have they not been helpful to us? Until we take into account all of that, we automatically keep repeating them. So history is not just embedded in our history books, which are limited to classrooms, but history is also the amalgamation of all of our patterns. It's a story of patterns being repeated, of patterns being overcome, of patterns being broken. Not just on physical levels, but even on psychological levels, on emotional levels, on mental levels, individually and collectively. It's also a story of patterns being repeated for decades and for centuries. And then us as individuals and as a collective society, as a collective nation, coming together to change, to overcome and break certain patterns which were no longer helping us. So as the character of Dr. Jahangir, played by Shah Rukh Khan in the movie Dear Zindagi, says to Alia Bhatt's character Kaira, कि जिंदगी में जब कोई भी आदत या पैटर्न बनता दिखाई दे, जस्ट पॉज, थोड़ा सा रुको, उसके बारे में अच्छे से सोचो एंड देन डिसाइड कि उसे आगे ले जाना है या उसे वहीं स्टॉप करना है, या यू विश टू टेक अ डिफरेंट टर्न. एंड द मोस्ट प्रोफाउंड थिंग ही सेज इज कि कोई भी आदत बनती दिखाई दे, कोई भी पैटर्न बनता दिखाई दे, विदाउट नेसेसरली सेइंग कोई भी अच्छी आदत या बुरी आदत. बिकॉज इन माई अंडरस्टैंडिंग एवरी हैबिट or every pattern is helpful to a certain degree up till a certain point in time, after which it's no longer helpful, after which that adat or that pattern no longer is enabling. And maybe that's why it's also said in Hindi language आदत एक बुरी बला है. And if I could translate it, probably it would mean habit, just like money, is a necessary evil. It's necessary, but if it starts controlling our lives, it can turn ugly and evil. If you're not mindful of it, if you're not aware of it, it can start controlling us rather than we being in charge of it. So let's then try and reflect on our own patterns, on our own habits that we have gotten habituated to. Or rather, our habits, our patterns have started to control and take charge of our lives. Let's try and reflect as to how we have been disconnected from our own five senses, from our gut instincts, from our gut feelings, from our heart, from our brains. Let's try and reflect on all of the places and spaces wherein we have started an internal conflict that's now getting reflected in our bodies. For our bodies are the first and the last frontier. Let's try and reflect on all of the interactions wherein we have knowingly or unknowingly lied to ourselves, been dishonest with ourselves and with others. And in all likelihood, most of the times, we might have done these things unknowingly, but our bodies have been keeping a score of that. Let's try and reflect on our personal and thereby our interpersonal histories, our stories, to help us understand as to what it's revealing for us, what it's trying to tell us with regards to what we need to keep going ahead with, because it's helpful, because it's helping us personally and interpersonally, and what we need to change, overcome, or even break, for it may be more disabling than being helpful to us. Let's try and reflect on that. Let's try and do that for ourselves to find more authentic and grounded connection with our own selves and with others within our interpersonal relationships. Let's try and do that for ourselves, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And guys, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.